Welcome to Split the Defense.
Split the Defense.
A Leafs, Avalanche, and NHL podcast. Hosted by Jordan Webster, Craig Pearce, and producer Ted Evans. Split the Defense is presented by LaForest Electrical Contractors. Professional and efficient service since 2004. Serving the Kingston and surrounding areas. Alongside co-host Craig Pearce and producer Ted Evans. Here's your host, Jordan Webster.
Welcome back to another rendition of Split the Defense, Free Agency Edition. We'll call it. The Stanley Cup has been awarded to those pesky Cats. They took that cup home away from the Edmonton Oilers. I'm not upset about it either way.
I'm a little upset about it.
I'm not. I don't even care. Good. Screw 'em. But that's all behind us, boys. It's all behind us. We've now gone through the first day of free agency, a bunch of signings the day before July 1st, where we had a bunch of restricted free agents or just teams who still had rights on guys who were able to re-sign. Lots of signings have been made in the NHL, and as every year seems to be, it seems like a new league. I feel like we say this literally every year, but so many guys have moved around. It's like a brand new league all over again. So lots to talk about. Well, why don't we start with the Toronto Maple Leafs, because we know that's what we want to get out of the way first. We got some guys that have departed, some guys that have re-signed, and some new faces. And I definitely want to hear from both of you. Tell me what you think of, the shit going on in Leafland. Max Domi, 4-year extension, $3.75 million.
Yeah.
Yay or nay?
Oh, super yay. It's exactly the number that I thought it kind of should be. When we were hearing that, the contract might be like $5 or $6 million, I was, getting a little skeptical, but that's just how negotiations go. The player comes in high, the team comes in low. I'm sure Brad Treliving would have loved to have Domi on a $2 million contract, but, the guy's got to make his money too. So for the dollar and what he brings for the team, I think it's perfect. It's right on the money. I think both sides will be happy with this contract going forward. So
yeah, it's a win-win. Max is, he's home like this. We said that when he came here, and it's just solidified more and more, and carrying on the Domi legacy in Toronto.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think, Webby?
A legacy for sure. I loved his, was it Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah.
Video meme that he made. Yeah, with his own face on it. That was just fucking classic. I'm not fucking leaving.
Not fucking leaving.
That's good. We all know Max wanted to stay. But somebody who we weren't sure who wanted to stay, Tyler Bertuzzi, has departed. He signed in Chicago, 4 years, $5.5 million. How do you feel about that one? Is that a loss on the Leafs or just too pricey?
I think it's both. I think like him and Domi were kind of linked together as like the Leafs only had the money to sign one of them. And, for the dollar amount, I think Max Domi brings way more than Bertuzzi does. Would I love for Bertuzzi to stay in a world that Mitch Marner was traded before July 1? Then sure. I would, but there's only so many dollars. So I think it was you got to pick between one or the other. And I'm happy that they picked Domi instead, because, dishing out, it was 5.5. That was going to be the number to get it done. Actually, and Bertuzzi maybe been for 5, but I still think that, Domi can play center. He can play left or right wing. He can play up the lineup. And so that's kind of where I sit between the two of them. Bertuzzi on his own, I think that in the back half of last year, he played really well. He kind of found his home. I think that's why he wanted to stay in Toronto, is because, he doesn't want to, do a half season of the feeling out process, which is what happens with almost every player when you move teams. So, I think he kind of found his spot with more power play time. He would have had way more points with the team. And so I think that he fit in. This is the same type of deal where, we thought that Hyman didn't fit into the cap picture and so on and so forth. Love to keep all these guys, but the cap's here for a reason. It's because Bettman doesn't like teams keeping their guys, and so they have to move on somewhere else.
I think that's it.
The cap does exist. Is he a $5.5 million player, Ted?
Well, he's a great player. Is Bertuzzi a great player? Yeah. It was a bit pricey for the Leafs, obviously, and how they wanted to put it together. But yeah, he's going to go play for all original 6 teams eventually one day. He'll get them all in, right? Like, fuck.
It is the trend for sure.
Yeah.
I see that happening now. Yeah, I know it is a cap world, and you just have to wonder: is he worth 5.5? Probably.
Well, I
But,
guess
not on
maybe.
not on a contending team, and not the Tyler Bertuzzi we had last year. He's going to have to be a different player.
That's it. He
You
took
know?
a little
But he
while
might
to fit in, right? Like he ended up, but it was a slow start, was it not? Like how many times we were
Oh,
like, we
very
were expecting
slow.
more, we were expecting
Very
more,
slow.
like so many times, and then finally it was like, oh, this is the Bert we wanted, and yeah, I mean, sure, go
But
figure it
like
out.
he
in Chicago.
thrives. He thrives in Chicago net front with Bedard, right? Like
No shit, yeah.
Well,
You're
also
right.
on a top power play. Like I think he's worth 5.5 on a top power play, getting lots of points and playing on a top line. But that's just not the cards that we had in Toronto. So I think he'll look much better in Chicago. Yeah.
So Ilya Samsonov gone. Signs with Vegas, $1.8 million deal for 1 year. What do you feel about the money? Do you think that's a good deal? Do you think the Leafs should have taken him at that, or is it just time to go?
Is it a good deal? Yeah. That's a guy that can steal you games. He might give up some games too, but I think that it's both a good deal and also it was time to move on. I think that we'll get to Stolars, but like the Leafs aren't looking for a guy to steal games. They're looking for someone who's consistent, can bring them a solid 1B option. And I think that they've completely gone in the way of Joseph Wall being the goalie of the future. So, Samsonov doesn't fit into that. And so I think that, yeah, if you're looking for a goalie under 2 million, that might steal a game or two for you, but also is not going to be your go-to guy, then yeah, I mean, it's a pretty awesome contract, actually, if you ask me.
Outsider, what do you think, Ted?
Yeah, I think it's good for you guys that he's gone. I mean, there's waste no more time on Ilya Samsonov. Is the thing, and yeah, I mean, we'll see what is he going to do in Vegas. He's not going to be their starter, obviously.
No,
I mean, so fuck it, like peace.
They're a team too that like they work on 4 goalies or something, right?
Yeah,
so,
I know.
He's just one of 4. I think
yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, he'll get it. Like you said, he'll get in there. He'll steal some games, whatever. Yeah, good for them. Fuck.
Okay,
Vegas,
so I got
though.
3
hate
guys
Vegas.
left. You left 3 guys who left here on my list that are got deals that used to be Leafs that are on new teams, and I want to know if you think any one of their contracts are worth it. So Brody is in Chicago, 2 years, 3.75. Edmondson went to LA 4 years, 3.8. Lyubushkin 3 years, 3.35. And LaJoie went to the Kraken, but he's on like a 2-way contract, so it doesn't really count. But the other 3, Brody, Edmondson, Lyubushkin. Brody at 3.75, Edmondson at 3.8, Lyubushkin at 3.35. Am I wrong to say they're all overpays?
I think they're all overpays for sure. The one that like seems fine is the Chicago one because they're okay paying that for a third pairing player. Most like any cup team, they're not going to want to pay Brody to be there. So I think it's fine where he's going, but yeah, they're all overpays. I think massively.
You don't think Chicago has playoff aspirations now, building around this superstar Connor Bedard?
In
Not
2
this
years?
year. Yeah, not this
Yeah,
year.
no. Yeah.
Not this year.
No.
Not this year. I think my expectations may just be too high because we got Austin Matthews and immediately we had Nylander and Marner come up from the wings and then Connor Brown and Zach Hyman and all of a sudden they made the playoffs and it was like, it's the first year.
Yeah.
But really it wasn't.
Yeah, I also don't think Bedard is like a Crosby or a Matthews or McDavid that can just change a team immediately. I think he could be a number 1 centerman on a cup team. He's not, I don't think a franchise changer. So I'm not sure that it's going to like
Hot
drastically turn around unless there's some other draft picks that work out and some nice signings that work. Bertuzzi might turn into like a great winger for Bedard. That's just like a piece of the puzzle. But
Yeah, I think Bedard, again, Bertuzzi thrives there, and I think all those pieces help Bedard make changes there. Maybe not the guy, but kind of the guy in a supporting cast too.
Yeah.
And that makes sense for a guy his age and his skill level. I mean, the kid, it was pretty fun to watch some of the stuff he did this year in the NHL.
Yeah, there's no question he's a star in this league. It's just, I don't want to say I'm like, saying he's not good or anything.
No, I know.
Yeah, it's tough to be compared to Crosby and Matthews. Like that's a, only once in a while.
I love how you just toss that in there.
Yeah.
Like, what is the fuck has Matthews done?
Crosby and Matthews,
love him,
they're
but,
on the
like,
same level for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crosby and McKinnon and maybe McDavid after this.
McKinnon and
crazy year,
McDavid.
like the guys.
Even
who just ruled the
Draisaitl, on his own team might be that type of a guy.
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's guys out. That's all the guys out.
Yeah.
But I think we determined that the depth defensemen out were a really big loss for the contracts. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. We're moving forward with that anyways.
100p.
I got to talk, and I got to start here. We have to start somewhere.
Okay.
And we have to start here. The Leafs signed defenseman Oliver Ekman-Larsson to a 4-year, $3.5 million
Why are we
contract.
starting here?
we got
Okay.
Just
You gotta
chaos,
do
that's
it.
why. What the
You just can't help yourself.
So is that's a bad idea, right? Like this seems like John Klingberg all over again, but like I don't know, with some pedigree maybe because he won a cup. Like what are we doing here? This would have been great. Like we can just toss in at the same time. Let's talk about Chris Tanev as well. The Leafs signed Chris Tanev to what did he end up
6
getting?
years.
Like 6 years and $4.5 million.
Yeah.
Right? Like
And
so
and he's 34.
4 years ago this might have been good, but now how do we feel about this?
I mean, I want to talk about them separately because I do feel differently about the two of them. So let's start with the OEL one, the Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Not a good deal. Just like I don't think there's not a great argument of how this is a good deal. I think it's a GM that promised that his defense was going to be better, and a lot of the defensemen were too expensive when it came down to it. And so he thought he was going to get someone better. And OEL was like one of the last guys that actually had a name that came behind him. I think Brad Treliving would have wanted Zadorov instead, Montour, if the numbers worked out, but they just didn't. He kind of, I think, hit the panic button in a little bit here. If it was a 2-year deal, I think I would be able to stomach it, but it's 4 years. Two of them are going to just be like manageable, I think. And then we have 2 years that are awful, but I think he's a third pair guy, and I think that's a lot to be paying. And especially if Liljegren's going to be staying here as a defenseman, I think he's a third pair guy too. And now you're paying $6.5 million for your third pair D, which just, I think that was a panic button move. And it's a little bit better than Klingberg. Well, actually, it's not, because it's better in the sense I think you're going to get more out of the player, but it's worse in the fact that you're going to have to deal with it for 3 extra more years. So
when do we find out he's been injured and dealing with it? When does that news come out?
The problem too
when
is
he's shit for the first 30 games.
Yeah, that's my argument for Tanev, is because I don't think I think we did these backwards because I wanted to say the things about Tanev, but Oliver Ekman-Larsson, I don't think
this is cumulative, CP. Before you go on your rant here about this is a group thing. He is not young. OEL is not young. We're inserting seasoned grizzled vets who are literally walking on eggshells at any point, could be ending their career. Guys who are on the twilight end, and that is the solution. And it's not we got them for less than $2 million or really, really cheap. We paid them substantial dollar. We paid $8 million for those two players. They're they're old, man. I know that we're old, but
for
they're
the
old.
NHL.
That's not.
And the thing is I don't think that OEL's skill set ages very well, because it's being a decent puck mover, being in a good possession. He's not an amazing skater. He doesn't clear the front of the net. He doesn't use his body. And those are my arguments for Tanev. And so that's why I think Tanev is kind of a good signing, because that money, he's going to go from being a top line defenseman to not being able to play. There's no real in the middle there. And so I feel better about that one, because, he's going to kind of fall off a cliff when his body can't handle it anymore. And so now you have LTI room. But OEL, I don't see that argument for him.
Island.
I just feel like his skills are diminishing. He's always kind of an overrated defenseman to begin with. I thought everyone defended him when he played in Arizona because their team sucked. He gets moved to Vancouver. He sucks there. And then he kind of was able to find a spot on a cheap deal in Florida. And now it's back to not being a cheap deal. And, I think it's going to be one of the guys that we complain about the most. Yeah.
What was he making in Florida?
Like, I think just under 2 or maybe just over 2.
So, I mean, I could stomach that.
Yeah,
like
for
2
sure.
years at like $2.5 or $3 million. It'd be like, cool. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, $3.5 million at 4 years. That's too long for a guy that's just now. It's just, I know either one of them individually wouldn't make me say this, but now it's a way too old defense core. You need guys who have been there. You need guys who know how to play. You need guys who can handle the moment. But you also need guys like, what if we don't win this year?
Yeah.
Because that's not the plan. We're just going to reset again next year and try again. Because, but you're giving these guys multi-year deals. So you're expecting this for multi-years. What do we get? 2? I think we're probably all optimistic we get 2 good years out of each of these players. And we have this little fail-safe in the back of our mind that we might John Klingberg with OEL and he might just be shit and we'll just flush him down somehow, some way. He's hurt. He's been hurt, actually. And OEL's like, I'm not hurt. And they're like, oh, no, you're hurt. 4 to 6, bud. 4 to 6.
Yeah.
Right?
Joffrey Lupul this right here.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted to separate the two is because I think that Tanev is the perfect defenseman to play with Morgan Riley. I think he's the perfect defenseman to bring in. I think that as long as he's in this lineup, he's a great addition. Like you said, if we get 2 years of Chris Tanev being what he is, like, I think that's amazing. I think it might be 1 year of what he is, 1 year slightly declined, and then the next year we're starting to, look down the road of how this isn't going so well, and then he stops playing. So yeah, it's not necessarily like, it's looking slightly like a punt type of a year. And so if Chris Tanev ends up that he doesn't play as well as he's doing next year, then it's been kind of a waste of his prime. It's weird talking about Chris Tanev's prime around this team because that shouldn't be like into question here. We should be talking about Morgan Riley, but yeah, it's just we're kind of going to be losing him at that point. So, but I think game 1 to 15, he's going to be amazing, and the fans are going to love him. After that point, he's going to have stints, guys, like where he's not going to play. There'll be 5 to 10 game stints where Chris Tanev won't be in the lineup. He goes down the tunnel at least once a game. It's what he does. He gets hurt. He puts his face in front of pucks. But it's exactly why we want him on this team and why he'll be so good. But yeah, it's just 2 years ago, Chris Tanev, like that's the guy we wanted. He doesn't seem to exist. Like there's very few of those guys in the league that are 28 and willing to just throw everything on the line and be smart defensively. Like you can be Simon Benoit, but the difference between the two of them is they both are willing to throw it all out there. But Chris Tanev is like an elite defensive defender. He sees plays as they're happening. It's like the opposite of being, like Mitch Marner. Like as guys enter the zone, he knows where to be. And those are like the skills that are underappreciated as a defensive defender because they're not all the same. Like we just got one of the best at it. It's just, how long is it going to last?
Yeah, one of the best. I mean, but like, for how long? I guess that's my biggest question is just for how much longer? Because he has been one of the best and he was pretty formidable for Dallas, but
very.
He did well, but is he going to continue to do that this year? Will he continue to do that next year? And it's 6 years. Well, I guess the only thing that we have is that we hope he gets hurt before he starts to play like shit. Because maybe his body does hold up, but he just can't quite do the things that he did before. Just because I can't push when I shit. 4 to 6, bud. I think we have worries about there. So we also got the Leafs signed defenseman Yanni Hakanpää to a 2-year, $1.5 million contract, and we now have 17 top 6 defensemen. How do you feel about this?
So I don't know. Hakanpää's all the things that we just said about Tanev, like repeat, just not quite as good. He's a guy. He's gonna bring it, but he already has this knee injury that Steve Simmons has written an article, and now everybody's writing an article about how he might not play this year. So, don't take too much from that, everyone, that, he's not going to play game 1, but it is like he didn't finish last year because of a knee injury.
Right.
It is a thing. He's 34, I believe. When he's in the lineup, he's going to bring it, but like, don't expect this guy to be in the lineup even next year. Like it's a 2-year deal, but I think if you got a year out of him, that'd be amazing. But
is he that old?
I think so.
Is that old?
yeah, I think he's I don't know, 32, 33, 34. I mean, once you're in those ages, I'm feeling it now. You hit those ages and your body starts to hurt. So, um,
32. Yeah.
yeah, okay, 32. So, I mean, I don't know. As long as he's in it, I think he's a great third pairing guy. But how many third pairing guys do we need? Like, you brought
That's
this
it.
up to me, and I think that they're both guys that can fit into the lineup, but we don't have the right complementary players with them to work that out. Like, you can't put them together. Like, one is a left and one is right, but that just seems like a you know that's going to be a disaster at some point. 2 or 3
Which
times
doesn't
a
make
game there'll
sense. We
be
have
a
too many of the
bobble.
same defensemen, right?
Yeah. And so I
It's
think that it's great that we got, like, he's a great seventh defenseman, I think. But, I think that, Timothy Liljegren, I'm not sure that, like, just for the arguments we had, like, that I think he's on the way out. And so he's currently, I think, going to be the sixth defenseman. I'm not sure how I feel about it because, yeah, like you've been saying over and over, it's like, we're signing dinosaurs here. This isn't like parts of our core that can grow. Like, if we had gotten Montour, you could have more of that discussion. But, these guys are definitely on the back nine, probably on like the back three. And that's when you start, counting your score and seeing where you line up. And I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I think the fun thing is, though, game 1 to 10, I'm going to love this decor. Like, the amount that I'm going to sing their praises at the beginning is crazy because they're going to play a style that I like. I think that Berube is going to bring a style that I like. And so it's just, yeah, we're all the great points you brought up. Like, this is probably only going to last so long, though. Like, it's a bunch of guys that are heading to LT is, sooner rather than later.
Island.
Yeah, Robot Island. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Excuse me. So they got a couple of minor signings too. Dakota Mermis, which like is getting way more media coverage than I thought.
Yeah, geez.
You heard of this Dakota Mermis guy? He must have a story. I expect he's going to play at least a few games for the Leafs, and I think probably earlier than later. I don't know why, but and then Philip Myers. You remember him? He was on like Nashville, I think, and he had lots of hype, and then he went to Tampa and wasn't very great, and now he's on the Leafs, and I wanted him a while ago. Do you have any thoughts on Philip Myers? Do you know Philip Myers, Ted?
I think I remember the name, but yeah, I don't have a thing to say about it. Or
I know the name
don't-
just from fantasy. I think he's a guy that I've either tried to get or from face-offs from him or hits, or he's one of those guys. He provides
his name in the
something.
list.
D-man.
Yeah, he's a demon. Philip Myers is.
Philip
Maybe is it
Myers.
he hits then? Like, I don't know. I've seen that name
He
as
hits or
something that
blocks
I've
or something,
considered. But yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna see any of these guys. Even like the first guy you said. Apparently, there was some story on TV about him. There's something going on there. I didn't read the article, but yeah, there's some story with him. But I mean, there's just no spots for these guys. I think they're more like depth, just in cases. They'll pass their waivers, and you'll probably won't even hear about it. And they'll probably play on the Marlies for the rest of the season. So.
Yeah, the rest of the season, or they'll end up somewhere else. We'll see how that works
Sure.
out.
Yeah.
Okay, I got two more things we'll try and get through the next like 5 minutes here before we move on to the Colorado Avalanche, which has been pretty sleepy and quiet, but still things to talk about. Evan Doerflor, I'm sorry, Evan, from the Hockey News. He's an intern there. This guy has been putting in work while everybody else has been taking time off this summer. He's been putting out stories like crazy. He's all over it, and his quote here is, "From what I'm hearing, the Leafs are contemplating taking the captaincy away." So
Yeah.
it asks, are the Leafs discussing a change in leadership from John Tavares to Austin Matthews? Do you think that's necessary? And did you think that this would actually happen? Words are out there now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should happen. I think it will happen too. Like, this is Matthews' team. I think he's closer to all the guys than Tavares is. Tavares has always been he leads by example, not in the locker room. And I think need to give a little bit more power to Matthews. You see the way that McDavid runs his team now, and it wasn't always like that. Like, guys have to grow into being in these positions, and I think that Matthews probably should have had it earlier so he could learn how to be the best at it. So I think it will happen. I hope that he takes it well, because this is a guy that still has to play on the second or third line, and Tavares, I mean. So, but yeah, I think it's time. It should have been his in the first place. If Matthews didn't make a silly, childish mistake, then it would have been. But that's just how the cookie crumbled, and it's been long enough now. And
Yeah,
and
no more
Tavares on his
storyline.
last year of his deal, like he should expect it, I think, in a way. Like, even though he might come back, like I'm not saying Tavares is gone, but it just feels like the right time and the right summer. New coach, new GM that's only been here for a year to evaluate everything. So,
New
yeah.
captain. Ted, do you think it matters who the captain is?
It does, for sure. It does. I mean, you're asking a guy who is a fan of
Captain
a
list.
team who, left our captains, the C on a guy who we knew wasn't going to play the whole season because he's still the guy. I mean, Gabe is the captain. There's so much argument that McKinnon could be, but there's different situations, obviously, in different locker rooms. But I think, even like on ice, off ice. Yeah, that thing that happened a few years ago, whatever. I think it's Maddie's team. Yeah, come on, give him the C.
Yeah. The funny thing is in Colorado is I think most people think McKinnon is the captain.
People
Like,
do think that.
if you polled the
I made
all
that
hockey
mistake
fans,
one time.
right. But yeah, and so like he's the guy that took away the Cheerios. It's not Landeskog. So McKinnon, I think he acts more like the captain than he does an assistant. Anyway,
They have a video on their social media, the Avalanche, of a bunch of kids saying why they love Nathan McKinnon, and it's a great video. But one of them is like, "I love Nathan McKinnon because of how nice he is to his teammates." It's like, this kid doesn't know fucking anything about.
You have no idea about it. That's funny.
Yeah, not quite, eh?
Yeah.
All right. The last thing we got to get into before we flip over is Mitch Marner. We've held off all this time and all this talk, and we've gotten through all the rumors of he might be going and whatever. Brad Treliving declined in his latest press conference to address any speculation on what comes next for Mitch Marner, but said multiple times that he's a star. Now, after his
all you can say.
July 1st signing bonus of $7.25 million has been paid out, there's speculation amongst the Twitter users and journalists that aren't quite on vacation yet that Mitch Marner is more eligible than ever to be traded. Do you feel that's true, or do you think he's pretty much sticking around at this point?
I think it's true. I don't think it changes anything. I think they were always negotiating a trade for July 2nd or later. I don't think that Brad Treliving was coming in and saying in 5 days, you're going to have to pay like $7 million. Like, every team's going to be like, all right, well, like, call me on July 3rd. So everyone, I think, knew the situation. I think that the whole situation, I think, has been reported kind of fairly in a way, where Brad Treliving's trying to trade this guy. He's not going to Marner with anything until it's set in stone. And that's why, Marner's camp can comfortably say that they haven't given a trade list or anything. It's just Brad Treliving's working the phones. Does he have a semi idea of where he would go? Just think of what are the top 5 places you'd like to go? They're probably similar to what Marner's are. It's like Nashville, Vegas, unless you're Ted, the Rangers, like LA. I don't know, like there's only so many teams that are like really appealing. Even Dallas might be one of them. Colorado, there's a few out there. And so, yeah, you just make those phone calls. If one sticks, you kind of run with it. But obviously nothing's stuck enough because, the plans are that this team is going with Marner. Just if you look at the cap, they didn't significantly go over it. There's not a lot of players left to go over it. So I think it's a dollar in, dollar out kind of trade at this point. And, we keep hearing about Vegas, they're the team that's in on everyone. So I would assume that they are talking.
Yeah.
Brad Treliving likes to talk to everyone. Vegas loves star players. So I guarantee they've talked. So it's just, Vegas probably wants a deal on a star player. Like, Brad probably doesn't just want to give up the cap space. Like, he'll walk him until July 1st if he's just giving it up. So, yeah, I thought that there was a perfect situation to kind of get a goalie backup and a defenseman from Vegas, like whatever combination you wanted to do there. But as far as just how July 1st went, it doesn't seem like that's very close to happening. Whether it happens or not, I'm not sure. But the only thing is Vegas was a little bit quiet. I haven't really looked through their cap and everything, but it's not like they went in and got a stud this free agency, and they always get someone. So makes me think that it's possible.
Vegas's track record, they're gonna like trade Thomas Hertl to the Leafs for March Marner because they just signed him, right? That's just how they work over there.
Yeah.
But you just reminded me of something I did miss, and I'm sorry to take more time on the Leafs, Ted. But we got 2 new goalies. Well, 1 new goalie and a returning goalie. You were saying maybe they'd make a deal with Vegas for a goalie, but that doesn't make sense now because they have Anthony Stolarz on a 2-year, $2.5 million contract. And they brought back Matt Murray to a 1-year, $875,000 contract. Wow. So I don't mind the Stolarz. I'm happy that Joseph Woll has got that deal, 3.8 or whatever he's making for the next 3 years. That seems like a decent tandem for the next couple of years. Matt Murray, though, how do you feel as that as your Martin Jones? I was really comfortable with Martin Jones last year. I liked him.
Yeah, I think like you're probably gonna get a similar type of player. Like I wouldn't expect anything crazy from him. I think he's probably better than most third goalies in the league. And I think it's been partially because they treated him so well and they paid all his medical bills. So they want to get something out of the guy. So I think the Murray one, I don't even really care about. It was the same as Martin Jones. Like this guy's going to just have to pass through waivers. He's the third goalie and it is what it is. But Stolarz, I really like. Like, I think that he's like from what everything I hear is like, he's a like athletic freak. Like he just has one of those bodies. He's gifted athletically. He works out really hard. Like I've heard that like 4 or 5 times now, different people commenting on just the athletic skill of him and how durable he could be. And like, what else are you asking for? And actually his numbers, I think they're a little elevated than what you'll get from a guy if you're going to have him be a tandem. Like he's been really successful at playing, 10 to 30 games as a backup.
Well, that's good because Joe Woll gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, but we want him to be able to play like probably more closer to 40, like even, just like you said, like we want the ability to get 50 out of you if things go really crazy sideways with Woll. So, but I think he was the best situation. The other guy was Brissois. And he went for just over 3. And so I thought that they were kind of the same goalie. And so, for 2.5, like Stolarz, like it's kind of perfect.
Okay, so assuming the Leafs make the playoffs, who starts game 1?
I hope it's Woll. Like all things go well, it's Woll, no question. But like just like last year was, like it's just nice kind of having a second option. And Samsonov almost blew that all for the first half of the year, but he really came around as like a decent second option, and it's really what he was. He was a backup when it came to it, and he did an okay job at that. So yeah, hopefully Woll is better. Can we just do like my overall take on the Leafs free agency too before we jump over? Because I just think one thing that's kind of we've missed a bit is just the forward group is almost the exact same minus Bertuzzi, right? And so I think that's partially like looking at this lineup that's disappointing to me. Like the defense is like, it's hard to argue that it's not better. You got better bodies in there. The goaltender situation I think is better. Woll a year older and a more reliable backup. But when it comes to the forwards, like they're just it's not a winning lineup. Like after the big guys, you got Domi and then like Yarncroke and Camp for your next biggest salaries, and they're playing like maybe on the 4th line. So I think like I hope that they
doesn't want to be here, but Bobby McMahon, he was hurt. You have to take that into consideration. That could have been a totally different playoff. We could have totally different opinions because he was a game changer. Believe it or not,
well, he's gonna have to be good. Like currently at the moment, there's an open spot for Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton to be trying out against each other for a spot. And I'm not sure that's the situation you really want to be in. Like you want one of those guys to, push their way in and to earn it. And so, and the biggest thing is just the center depth. Like Kampf to me tops out as a 4th line center. He doesn't he makes too much money to be doing that. And there's just no 3rd line center unless it's Domi or Holmberg or Fraser Minton. And so I just think that's the biggest hole in this team currently is the forwards. It's just like, it's how it's always been is there's too much firepower up front and not enough of them play center. Like if we're paying all these guys over $10 million and 3 of them were a centerman, that would be different. But right now it's like, okay, Mitch Marner has to drive a line on the 3rd line. And so that's kind of an issue for me.
Or John Tavares has to be the 3C, and they have to figure out somebody to be a 2C, and they just have to make
Right.
it work. And I don't know how it's going to work, but we see a lot of teams go into the playoffs and think that second line isn't as good as our second line, and they end up going further. So maybe you just have to have faith and just see what the hell they can concoct together and throw together some Franken line, and hopefully it works.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works. I mean, what do they have? What options do they have? They're running out of cap space. They have a whole bunch of guys who can kind of play the position. They gotta give it a shot. And I think 3C is a lot different of a role than 2C. So
Yeah,
I think you got to give a few guys a 2C shot and a few guys a 3C shot, and hopefully somebody just finds their way there. Otherwise, there's always the trade deadline.
Yeah, I think the only other than the Marner making space and you bring in a centerman if you're going to fix that spot, but like it would be trading Yarncroke and Kampf. Like they're the only ones that make over what you really are getting from them. Like Yarncroke's really close, but it's just someone making that much on a third line. I think is replaceable. Where if you kind of channeled that money more into a third line, and maybe Holmberg can be your replacement on fourth line centerman, but. Like to me, Holmberg's more of a 4C or he's a winger on a third line. It's tough in that third line. It's something that people don't talk about enough, but there's not many players in the league that make a really good third line centerman. Like you said, it's very different than playing like second line center. It's more of a grinder type of a role, and you got to be good defensively, but you're also expected to chip in offensively once in a while.
Ross Colton.
Yes, if everyone had a Ross Colton. Like no one would even talk about it, but yeah, we don't have a Ross Colton. There's no Jordan Stahl here. It's
yeah, Jordan. Yeah, he's a great. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, they don't have a prototypical 3C, but there's still time. Free agency's not over, and like I said, you can go through the season and try a bunch of guys, plug and play, and figure something out in March. That might just be what happens. Or maybe by then you start figuring out Mitch isn't going to be here and it's not going so high, and you get a stud. Who's a 2C, and John Tavares is your 3C, and whatever.
Henrique to me was
candy and nuts.
Yeah, Henrique to me was a bit of an opportunity I thought that was missed because that guy's only making $3 million, and he's a 3C easily.
He wanted to stay in Edmonton. He was offered 3.5 by Winnipeg.
Oh, was it? Well,
he wanted to stay.
Winnipeg has to offer way more than everyone else, but it's not a good comparison.
They don't even have an airport.
Yeah, which is I hate that. Like they have an airport, people. There's a friggin' airport.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
It closed for one day.
Anyways, the Colorado Avalanche. The Colorado Avalanche have not done very much. How do you feel about that, Ted? Not doing very fucking much at all up to this point. Is it underwhelming, or you just feel positive with everything you've already got?
Well, yeah. There is that. There is the knowledge that we did have a pretty good team last year, and some finer moves are maybe all that's needed. Not some big splashes, but we obviously have the Val Nichushkin thing sitting in the wings, and a lot of uncertainty there. He's playing over in a charity league right now in Russia, in the Media Hockey League. He's going to be playing in their second ever season, and the Avalanche seemed to find that out the same way everybody else did. It was just like, oh yeah, I guess Val's over there doing that.
That's rich.
Yeah, so it's interesting. He's doing his rehab over in Russia, which
it's not very good.
Yeah. We wonder what that's like. Not a lot of intel on what the rehab in Russia is like. And so I don't know. I don't know if he's ever going to be an Avalanche again, if I'm being honest. I think that's going to be a terminate and walk away kind of thing. Like he's
so what he makes $6 million a year. Am I right?
Yeah, 6. Yeah,
for like
either
4 more
6 or
years
6 point.
right?
Yeah.
So that's $6 million they could potentially shop with if Val Nichushkin isn't there. But
what a question mark, though. Like
I know.
'cause you don't know.
Obviously, they don't have faith. I mean, they didn't go and do nothing. Do you know Joe Sakic to be conservative?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, that
so-
guy gets shit done. If he
I
wants
know.
something, he wants something. He obviously feels pretty good about with what he's got right now, or was not happy and to pay the deals that went out in free agency, and is probably trade shopping still.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of exactly the uncertainty of that kind of affected the moves I think they would have gone out and just fucking made if they knew what was going on. But there's the situation too, if he does come back, if Val does come back after his suspension, which could still be extended more. It's not even like for sure when the end of that really is going to be. He yeah, like we have this prorated thing where we have this a little bit of space in the time that he's gone. And so they've made these little moves, right? And those things we can do whether it happens or it doesn't. And so that has been a little underwhelming, but you got to know these guys are smart. Like Joe up there is the head of hockey operations, and Chris McFarland, the GM. These guys know what they're doing. I mean, getting Drouin re-signed, signing Yoel Kiviranta yet again. Love
Okay,
Kivy.
yeah, let's go through that list. That list. I want to
Yeah.
play a little game here. I'm going to start out.
Okay.
Jonathan Drouin signs a 1-year, $2.5 million deal.
Yes.
Boys, yay or nay?
Big yay.
Yeah.
CP, 2.5 for Jonathan Drouin. One year, he performed pretty well last year.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
2.5 is fair.
It's great.
Yeah, the tough situation with Drouin is he's great if he's going to be a 2.5 on a top line, which you know that he has the ability to.
Mhm.
Now he's in a position where his contract's not variable, so it's got to work. Last year we were
Yeah.
kind of like, if it didn't work, who cared? Like he was
He was on the fourth line at some points, right?
Yeah,
There was nights he was scratched. Yeah.
Yeah, but now there's some more expectation here from him.
Yeah,
That's
so
right.
you don't want to see him scratched again at 2.5.
No,
Right? No.
But I don't think he will be. I mean, the confidence levels were up. You saw it just building and building. He really hit his stride at one point. And the only thing that was happening that was taking him off the top line was the uncertainty of Val and Lehkonen coming back after his neck injury. I mean, those top two lines were shifting around like crazy. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Drouin, yeah, I think he's got a way more solidified top 6 role now. And he's got to do it, but I think he's going to. Him and Nate.
And we have a couple of Ottawa Senators that have now joined the Colorado Avalanche. One of them being Parker Kelly.
Parker Kelly.
I do not have his contract total. And then the other one is Eric Brandstrom.
Yeah.
So Eric Brandstrom was a RFA that was not qualified by the Senators, I believe. He was tell me if I'm wrong, he was the pick that came over in the Mark Stone deal from Vegas. And I believe he was Vegas's late first round pick or a second round pick from Vegas.
He was a former first round pick, yeah. So it must have been.
He was Vegas's first round pick that got traded for Mark Stone way back. Right? So then he went to Ottawa and never really worked out there. And he signs a deal worth $900,000 for the Avs. Now, I think this is perfect for the Avalanche because he is a player with upside. He 100% has a chance to play. He's not that old. He still could find it, and his skills seem to translate into high production. Like, he can play defense, but he's also got that offensive ability. With that being said, he cannot perform at that level right now. He needs to be sheltered. He cannot be relied upon as even a seventh defenseman. But I think him playing for the Avs, where they have 6 solid guys, so even if, and I'm not talking elite 7 defensemen where like you guy has to come in and maybe carry more weight than he needs to, he's going to be able to go on, and if he comes in as the 7th guy because one guy's hurt or an 8th guy because 2 guys have gotten hurt, there's probably enough defenders to carry the heavier minutes and the tougher matchups through those games without having to expose him. So I think this is potentially a good fit for him, especially if the Avs do well and it's a 1-year deal and he can go and write himself a new check next year.
Exactly. I mean, I think, he's a depth piece. That's all he is. He's a piece to add into this depth. He's not going to be relied on, like you said. But if
you
he
have the
can be
potential
there,
for having something
exactly,
too, right?
And that's the thing, is he's not like a total downside. Like, we've had those defensemen, and we have them in our organization still. But no, like this guy, I don't know. I see it as a good signing. Yeah, 900,000, sure. Let's 1 year. Let's figure it out. He's 24.
Yeah, 24. So there you go. There's time, right? Like, and he's got upside. So I think it's a great signing. The other one, Parker Kelly. I think that guy punches faces.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
legit.
That's from what I remember. I think that's what his specialty is. Yes, he likes to mash faces.
Okay.
With
Cheap
his
contract,
fists.
$825. So yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
Known for using his head to break other guys' hands.
Yeah, I've heard Senators
Wow.
fans.
Just
I've seen tweets saying that Avs fans are probably going to like this guy. Good, dedicated guy, like puts in the work. And
I remember him playing against the Leafs last year, and he's a pain in the ass.
What's
Big
funny is
dude from what I remember.
I remember his name so much, but I just like nothing pops out to me as like, oh yeah, that guy. That's what he does. But I believe you that he punches faces. But yeah,
I think that's his specialty. I don't think he's too old either.
yeah.
One of my favorite signings for the Avalanche is somebody I've wanted the Leafs to get forever, and it's Calvin DeHaan.
Yeah.
$800,000 for a year. That's a good
That's
contract. That's a nice depth signing right there.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. And
Does he
that's
shoot
another
right?
thing.
Is he lefty?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but
He's a lefty.
I have
He
a feeling
plays left or right. So, but I don't have
but
his hand.
What
here.
does he shoot? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think he's a guy who we're going to see suit up essentially right like game one. He'll be on that
For sure.
third pairing essentially. He's going to be there.
Good old reliable Calvin DeHaan. Yeah, like I
Exactly.
know he's never been a superstar stud, but like I remember this guy since junior.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's been
Yeah.
around for his name has been around for a really, really long time.
Exactly.
So, good old Calvin DeHaan in Colorado. And like I said, I wanted him as a third pairing guy because he's a cheap and reliable, not flashy, but reliable defender. I wanted him to sign in Toronto like 2 or 3 years ago.
Shoots
and I
left.
think he ended up going, I can't even remember where he went. Then he was in Chicago. When it was
I was gonna say
how the fuck did
Chicago's
that
what
happen?
jumps out to me. Yeah.
Yeah, how did that happen? He should be here, but yeah. But that's a nice tidy signing there. And then re-signing Joel Kiviranta
Yeah.
at $775 for another year.
I like it. I liked what he did. He was so fun to watch. He was laying hits in the Winnipeg series first round. He was destroying guys that are easily twice his size. Like he's not big, and he was knocking big guys down. It was really fun to watch. He was just throwing everything he had into it. Love that
Well,
guy.
that's good. That having guys like that in the bottom six that can contribute at that low paycheck is just massive for a team that is
Yeah.
cap strapped like the Avs. I mean, like any good team is chasing right now is cap strapped. So it's not like there's that one superstar team, but they've got all that cap space. Nobody does. They're all strapped. So it's nice to have a guy like that. And if he can actually contribute, fill a role in the third, fourth line, then you don't have to worry about $1.5 million. You get another. You might actually be able to use that instead of $1.5 million. You can get a $2.5 million player because you didn't have to pay this guy. So that's always a bonus.
Yeah.
The other guy is Amode. Do you know who the fuck that is? Never heard of this guy in my life.
Yeah,
He's
he's
got,
he's been in our system for a little bit.
He got more than
AHL.
Kiviranta.
Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. It's funny. I think Kiviranta took a little bit of a just take whatever he can get because he really liked his spot on the team. But, Amat, I believe it's pronounced.
Amat.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you.
Amato.
Yeah, he's been around. Exactly. He's been around.
I like that.
Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Doesn't matter to me. Okay. So that's all I've got on the Avs. Now you tell me about the Avs. What do they need still? What was the one player that they didn't get that you really wanted them to get?
I would say there was no name I was looking for because I wasn't sure what their plan was going to be. So of course, some of the big names that were out there, I'd be like, hey, let's go run and gun on one of those big names. But I don't know if that's what they were looking for. Early on too, re-signing Casey Middlestat too, before that all, that was a good thing we needed to do to lock that in because he's going to be our guy for the next couple of years, our 2C. Like he's the guy. He's 25, 26. Really love that. We got that locked down, and now we kind of just shift and figure out. Like we lost Trennan, Duhaime, Sean Walker on defense. All these guys we brought in at the trade deadline last year have gone on to these other places, and we're just picking up the pieces and figuring out the Val thing. Again, that's this cloud hanging over us right now, and I honestly would, as much as I love Val and the choo choo train and all of that. Man, it's such a sour taste to watch them go down because, because of that. Like, it's hard to put
Twice.
it on one thing, but yeah, almost 3 times. Like, it's basically
Right.
he's tainted years for us,
Yeah.
multiple years, and which could have been really good years for the franchise, for certain players, for everything. So it's hard to want to
how
bring
does that
that
work?
back.
Does he get paid through that in the the contract still counts against the cap, or when you go in the NHLPA, they get to hide that money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they get to hide it. It gets paid, I think, through insurance somehow. Like the team doesn't actually have to pay him, but he is collecting his check. So
Yeah.
I think there's like it's kind of one good thing that they didn't go out and get someone, big name or flashy target is like you expect that those guys are coming back then. Like management thinks that, Landeskog's coming back, Nichushkin's coming back. So I mean, if you're a fan of those guys, then that's at least a good sign. And you can kind of consider Landeskog as a free agent signing if he is here because he wasn't on the team last year. I know he had
Yeah.
before, but like that's a pickup that's like invaluable. You can't even put a number on what's that's worth to the team.
That's so true. Yeah, if Gabe comes back and plays in any capacity this year, it's going to be an uplifting moment and part for the team and all the players and everything.
Any update there, like on Landeskog? No,
not
we're gonna
officially, like
a month from now we're gonna start hearing something. If he's like ramping up and training, or if he's not, and there might be some moves to be made at that point for the Avalanche. But yeah,
100%.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's it. We'll know a lot more at training camp. But even then, I think there's guys they know that aren't going to be ready for training camp, but they're not worried about. They're like, it's fine. Like, it's fine. He'll be good for the season. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Everything's fine.
He's
guys.
not going to be there for
fine.
training camp. It's fine.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
the goaltending situation too is interesting. We just drafted some interesting. First time we've drafted 3 goalies too. But yeah, Georgie, I think he's gonna hold it down. Then we've got Noonan. Yeah, Eustace. I love him. And him and then Prosvetov too also, which is a solid guy down in the AHL that can kind of flip back and forth a little bit. Although I don't know Noonan's new contract. I'm sure it's still 2-way. There's no fucking way. So anyways, yes, goaltending's good. But someone I'm really excited for is that Ilya Nabokov that we signed from the KHL. He's 21, plays in the KHL.
Sure
He's
he
a
is.
stud.
Shows his ID. I am 12.
Yeah.
Like, sure you are, Ilya Nabokov. I know you. I've heard of you before.
I know, right? So no, yeah, he's a stud. Like the way, I don't know, things I've seen and heard from him, he's made some insane saves. We also drafted one of the kids that played for the Canadian under 18 or under 17 or whatever. And he's going to be at training camp. Get a good look at him. We brought in a guy from Denver U that they've been looking at. That's too old to be drafted. That might make a little splash there. So I don't know. It's really interesting to see what the Avs have going on right now.
The thing with goalies is like I've done it before. You get excited about someone you draft, and it's like 4 years later, someone reminds you about the guy, and it's just like, what happened to him? He's like, oh, he's playing in Finland.
Yeah,
God, darn it, that didn't work out. Like,
yeah,
at least that's how it works when you're a Leafs fan.
No, that happens a lot. Justin Pogge, what the?
Yeah, whatever.
Once in a while, though, you get one.
I know.
You pick one, and then 4 or 5 years down the road, they're your star goalie.
I know. Look at Wool, eh?
Yeah, I mean that's been like 8 years down. How old? Wool's older than everyone. He was
drafted the same year as Matthews, or was he drafted the same year as Marner?
All right.
Yeah, he was drafted.
He's been around.
I think Matthews. Yeah,
it's great though to see.
A long time.
He's gonna be the guy, you think, right? He's the guy, right? He's got to be.
He's the guy if he stays healthy. Honestly, I have full faith that he's the guy. But can he play 50 games? I'm not convinced of. Can he play a full 7 playoff games in a series? And I'm not convinced yet. So that's the only problem with that guy. But yeah, skills are there. I mean, he's been a winner for every step of the road that he's been. So I don't know. But yeah, health is part of it as well.
Were we going to have good odds? Are we going Leafs Avs final then? Like, what do we think the odds are going to be at the start of the year for our teams? Like, last couple of years, we've both been kind of like, hey, Avs, really good odds. Hey, Leafs up there too. And then it's like,
yeah.
It's going to be tough, I think, for both Webby and I to get on board. I don't want to speak for Webby, but to honestly believe that this Leafs team is going to go to the finals next year, that's a tough sell, at least for me. I mean, I think the defense is definitely capable. The goalie, if you hit the lottery with the goaltender with Wall, then capable. But I just see way too many holes, in the offense, mainly in the bottom six. I mean, it's just also the same thing about rolling back our same 4 core players. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I don't necessarily see that. The Avalanche, if they get their guys back, I totally can see where the Avs just have the best decor, in my opinion. It's just at least the top 4 of it is just locked in and steady. And yeah, so you got star players. So yeah, I can definitely. I might watch more Avs games this year. I mean, you got to stay up late for them, but
Worth it.
I thought I'd do that this year. It's way too late. I get through the first period and I passed out.
It's
so.
late.
It was like Canucks playoff games. Like, how many times did I fall asleep? 10 minutes left in the third, and then they blow it. So,
yeah. Well, okay. So we got just a couple minutes left, boys. I want to end on one last topic, and it's what the fuck is happening in Tampa Bay.
Oh,
wow.
What is going on there? Okay, so they've
Oh.
now dealt Sergachev to Utah for JJ Moser and Connor Geeky and a pick or something like that.
yeah,
Then they didn't re-sign Steven Stamkos.
yeah,
Then they re-signed Victor Hedman for an $8 million deal, and their big free agent acquisition is Jake Gensel.
yeah. And Tanner Jeannot got traded too.
Tanner Jeannot's gone as well. They're just completely tore down and rebuilt all in one offseason, it feels like. Wrong?
I mean, I think a little wrong. They feel like the same team. Like Gensel's just kind of how much more is he bringing than Stamkos that brought them last year? And like now Sergachev's out of there. I know that you had to get rid of money for Hedman, but I don't know. Like I don't necessarily think they're much better.
But they brought McDonough back too, didn't they?
Yeah,
Am I
he
wrong
is a
with
good
that?
defenseman,
Yeah.
but I mean Sergachev I think is and also Sergachev was perfect when Hedman wasn't producing on the power play. You could swap them out. You can't do that with McDonough. I mean you could, but like he's not going to do a good job at it.
Oh, but
So.
they've got like Nick Perbix.
Oh, cool.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. What the hell is going on? So do you think they're obviously not tanking, right?
No.
They're trying to be competitive still. But
Just trying something
really
different.
went and changed the face of their team now with they paid a lot for Jeannot, like a lot. Right?
Yeah, one of each pick.
Yeah,
A first, a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth.
a sixth,
Yeah.
a seventh.
It was a whole
yeah.
draft class. They
Yeah,
traded
a
away for
joker,
him.
wild card. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I know. It was nuts. And then they just signed Sergachev like 2 years ago or last year to that big deal.
Yeah,
It
2
wasn't
years
long
ago.
ago.
It was not long ago.
And now they flipped him and Steven Stamkos, 2-time captaining cup winning player for them, and they now have just dropped him.
Should have been a
really
franchise
does feel
guy.
like a different team. It really does feel like a different team.
Yeah, he should have been there for life. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I never ever saw Stamkos in another jersey.
I never ever saw him re-signing this year because they put that through him. Oh my God, let me start over. Tampa put Stamkos through this last time. The last time his contract came up, they pushed him to the very, very limit to take as little as possible. And so I think when it came down to the rumors, they weren't even discussing a contract. Like I think it was just, at a certain point, both sides knew it was coming. But it is crazy. Just he does seem like a friend. As much as they didn't really treat him like one, he is the face of that franchise. And it's kind of weird to see things like when someone wins with a team, you expect them to be there forever, especially when they're one of the leaders, right? But not to make it about a different sport, but like Klay Thompson in the NBA, same thing happened. The guy was one of the leaders of that team, and he expects to be paid the rest of his career as that player. And it's like, man, but you're not that player anymore, and we're gonna offer you a contract like it. And so I think Stamkos is much better than Klay Thompson is at this point. But I think Stamkos got overpaid. There's no question about it. I don't think his contract's going to look good on the back end. And, so it's one of those.
8 mil.
Yeah. He's not going to live up to that, I don't think. But, it's a weird way of doing it. You see so often that teams either are going for it with the players they got or they're rebuilding. Unless you're Vegas. Unless you're Vegas and you're just like, cards in and out at all times. But
Nashville seems to be given some
there's another.
some
Yeah.
way to the water. I mean, they got some players this year.
I know they made some moves. And quickly,
got
B, yes,
Wedgwood
Josh Manson, we love him. Yes, we'll always keep him. Yes,
Oh yeah.
But
I
yes.
wish he was on the Leafs. Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
big time.
we were upset we didn't get him when he went to the Avs.
Yep.
But yeah, they got Wedgwood from Dallas, who's like reliable backup. But they signed Brady Shea, 7 years, $7 million. That's a huge deal for Brady Shea.
Yeah.
Steven Stamkos got 4 years, $8 million, and Jonathan Marchessault got 5 years, $5.5 million. So
And on the back of last year, giving O'Reilly all the money too. And,
Yeah.
So over under on them attending a U2 concert this year.
under. That's never happening again. There's not even going to be the option for them to do it because that was too much publicity.
Yeah. Well, it worked the last time, so we're gonna buy everybody tickets, and then we're taking it away.
No one's
19-game
going.
win streak. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Washington's
that's all I've
another
got.
one too, eh? Like
that?
Washington, like the
Washington.
Capitals.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's a good point. That's another
brought
team.
in BLD.
What the fuck are they doing though? Like, isn't it time? When is it time?
They're trying to build a couple lines for Ovechkin. Like I don't think that's a team trying to win. That's like, how can we make our top two lines in both offense and defense as good as possible? And we're riding this out for 2 more years, and Washington's going to be
winning that
awful
scoring title.
forever.
Yeah.
It's going to take 10 years to pick up the pieces from that team, but yeah, it is what it is. When
Well,
you got a
they
guy,
got
you got a guy.
Pierre-Luc Dubois traded for Darcy
Sucks.
Kemper. That was a crazy deal.
Right.
It
Yeah.
sucks. Yeah,
Just a
Like,
wild deal.
that's a crazy
So-
one. Just as a deal, like go ahead, but yeah,
Yeah,
What a
LA,
weird
they
one.
just lost so much on that. They just
Yeah.
got Darcy Kemper for like fucking a boatload of everything. They got picks,
Yeah.
prospects, players. What do you want? It's all in on that. Pierre-Luc Dubois. Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like 3 guys that could be on your team right now that are now playing for Winnipeg, and then another pick, and like basically that's what you gave up for Kemper. Like it's insane.
Yeah,
Ugly.
for
Yeah.
Kemper, because they need a goalie that bad, a goalie that you can afford that bad, because all the other ones were either not quite as good or cost more.
And just cutting bait on the PL. Like I think
Oh, yeah.
that tells you everything you need to know. Is like that guy's there for a year, and they instantly are like, nope, like that was an awful trade, and we're getting
Yeah.
rid of him. Like that's how you know there's a problem with that guy. And I think he has all the skill in the world. It's just there's either like an attitude problem or a room problem, or he doesn't want to play for anyone but the Habs. I'm not sure, but there's something going on there. Like I wouldn't touch that guy with a 10-foot pole on my team.
Yeah, I don't even know if he'll ever end up on the Habs with his bad attitude, or what do we call that? His temperament. With the temperament that we think
Dickhead.
he has, I don't think that he's going to fit in a big market like that. I don't think they'll ever pick him up as much as he wants to play there, and he might be a decent player. I think he'd have to play for damn near minimum, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, he's also
So-
on a big contract now. He just signed with LA, so I think we're 6 years or something away from that being an option anyway. And by that time, he's probably
He'll
not going to be in
old
the
and done
league.
anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go.
I love that dyslexic
Douchebois.
That's
Hey,
good.
that's the best one. That's the name of the
Nice.
episode. Douchebois. Okay, boys, it's been an hour.
That's
Let's wrap
mean.
this bitch up.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody for joining us. Thanks for listening to Split the Defense Hockey Podcast. Make sure to like this podcast on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. Subscribe to our YouTube. Rate us 5 stars everywhere else. And hey, if you really like this thing, you can leave us a review. Or if you didn't, you can tell your friends how shitty it is. Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
You can find us on X at STDP Hockey and search for Split the Defense everywhere else to stay up to date with what we're doing. Posting out fun clips and sometimes questions. And we're probably taking a bunch of time off this summer. But we'll be back. When? You'll find out.
sometime.
Till next time. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Split the Defense Hockey Podcast.
Split the defense.
Hosted by Jordan Webster, Craig Pearce, and producer Ted Evans. Split the Defense is presented by LaForest Electrical Contractors. Professional and efficient service since 2004, serving the Kingston and surrounding areas.